This conference will now be recorded.
I believe we have all the trustees here, so we can move forward with the meeting. And first thing, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. So we can rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so just some things that we need to have out there. Lori is now officially moved out of the village, so she is currently not a member, a trustee, but she is here for the meeting to assist. So I've asked that she be here, and then she can weigh in on discussion points to give her thoughts about some things. So all the other trustees are present. We do have Stan that is present, and he is with Jeff White in the back, although Stan's not on camera, Jeff White is, but Stan's in the same room. And then I'm at the Village Hall where we have Kelly Simons and Sally Joe, and Lori's here. And then we have Drew Pearson, who later on I'll be asking the board to appoint. If we could have roll call, please.
Mr. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Kimes?
Don, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right.
I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Kimes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Thank you. Mr. Malagranda?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
Ms. O'Rourke?
Here.
Okay, and by Executive Order 2021-09, disaster declaration has been extended through May 29th of 2021. So we are able to meet virtually. We do not need to have a quorum here personally in the Village Hall. However, I am personally here, which satisfies the criteria of having our meeting virtually. And just as a reminder, every vote must not be a roll call since we are meeting virtually. We can move on to disclosure of any conflict of interest. Does anyone have any conflict that they need to state? All right, hearing none. If you do find that you have a conflict with a particular interest, please let us know. Any changes in the agenda tonight? All right, hearing none. If we could have an approval of the agenda as printed. Motion, please.
Jeremy Graham will make that motion.
Julie will second.
All right, second by Julie. Roll call, please.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kimes?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. If we could have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Jeremy Graham will make that motion. Jeremy Graham will second.
All right, Mr. Kimes made the motion. Mr. Graham seconded it. Again, if we could have roll call when you're ready.
Mr. Kimes?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
All right, that's approved. Nobody signed up for public comment, so we'll move on to Public Works.
Okay, you've got item number 1, just to reference, there are draft minutes from our meeting on April the 28th were sent out with the packet, I assume. I haven't had a chance to access that remotely, but that will have some additional background information. Item number 2, although we discussed it committee, we haven't taken a committee action on it, but I know the topic was going to come up for discussion during the Finance Committee. And basically that is the replacement of a 1/2 ton as well as a 3/4 ton truck The options being either an outright purchase or the possibility of lease. And so I guess I just find out from Julie or Jeremy what discussion or what action or direction maybe they're thinking of from the Finance Committee meeting.
Julie, can you take this one? I know you had some discussions of stuff from today.
Yeah, we talked about it in finance, and it's kind of so new to all of us. We were unsure of it. And then I started to do a little research because I don't know anything about municipal leasing. And when I started reading it, I was wondering if we were approaching it right. And I was hoping Mary could educate us. But long story short, I don't think we're prepared and educated enough in this meeting to make any vote or decision. I need to feel better about how this is supposed to be done. And I was concerned about the interest rate. Chad and I had a conversation today too, just trying to make sure that we were kind of doing it the way municipalities were supposed to. And I just had too many red flags going up on what was being done. And Mary, I don't know if you have anything to say for now. I just don't think we're at a point we can even discuss it in detail today.
I can get you some information on municipal leasing. We had, some time ago, I had put a booklet together for the board members, but it needs to be updated as far as different purchase options. So I wrote that in my notes. I'll get you get the finance committee and the rest of the board information on municipal leasing.
Yeah, I think
Well,
oh, go ahead.
Well, I said again, whether it's a direct purchase or a lease, I think we've got to get some fire under this subject. And again, my personal opinion is I would rather see a purchase rather than a lease, but obviously depending on what the situation of the village is. But I think we just got to keep in mind that the original plan was the 3/4 ton truck was supposed to be replaced in 2019. So, we're now at 2021, and if we don't at least get a vehicle on order or something like that, we're probably going to be pushed into another model year. And likewise, the half ton was going to be, in 2020. So as we let these vehicles go too far belong, we're going to start, paying probably more in maintenance and repair expense than what maybe the little bit of interest would be. But so I guess if we can at least get knowledgeable of what the requirements are on the lease, or number two, are we in a financial position to move forward with a capital, purchase as we have done in the past, just so we can get a couple vehicles on order sooner rather than later?
Well, Mike, I think we did budget for those purchases. Sally, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's nodding her head yes. So I at this point, if it's somewhat urgent or we think we need to replace the vehicles, I'd be okay with us just purchasing them this time around and maybe lay out a long-term plan. My understanding too is leases have to be in an every year appropriation line item. So I don't even know that we could do it this year. I don't know if it would have to start with the next year, but again, or we do a special appropriation. That's Mary's world, not mine. So,
Yeah, it can be done by way of a supplemental appropriation if that were needed.
yeah, I would say if it's urgent, we've budgeted to purchase them. I don't see any problem with purchasing them unless, Chad has got real strong feelings that leasing is the way we want to go from a longer term perspective, but then we're just going to need time to understand it, I think.
Well, what I would like to do at this point, only because, again, if we don't get moving on this, we could, start to encounter additional repair expenses. So, buy us some time to get to the leasing. But I would like to make a motion that basically we move forward on the purchases of two vehicles, a 3500 series. Basically, we have got a estimated purchase price at $45,000. With $12,000 of supplemental equipment, include plows and lights and so forth, which is $57,000. The dealer was going to offer trade value of 11.5. That we probably can go to the market and hopefully come close to that. And the second vehicle is a half ton, which would have a purchase price of $42,400 with $5,500 supplemental equipment for a capitalized cost at $47,900. So in summary, two vehicles, $57,000 for a 3/4, $47,900 for the half ton.
Sally, is that aligned with what we budgeted? Do you recall? I'm trying to find in the.
And I'll need a line item.
Sally Bennett, can you assist with the line item, please?
think we're looking here. Because it's gonna come out of general and O&M, is that right?
Right, should be.
Everything was shifted to O&M to that depreciation account, right, Sally? For capital purchases.
Yes, the line item would be 5144951.
For the whole purchase price?
Yes.
And you gave me a trade-in value on the one vehicle, but not on the second,
No.
is that correct?
Actually, okay, yes. The anticipated trade-in value that the dealer was going to offer on the half-ton was $8,000. At this particular point, it really doesn't play into the motion. That was more just informational.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we have a motion to purchase two vehicles, one at approximately 57,000, the other one for 47,900 from the line item that was stated. Do we have a second?
Jeremy Graham will second that motion.
All right. Any additional discussion regarding this motion?
Obviously, this is coming from Public Works. It's already been discussed, and this is the route that we want to take.
Well,
Is that correct,
we were on the
Or
fence
Mike?
at we were on the fence at the last meeting. We were certainly in agreement that we needed to move forward with the two vehicles. We were uncertain whether it was going to be a capitalized cost or whether it was going to be a finance. Everybody was leading towards the lease option, but obviously with the obstacles that we have ahead, I think that's the consensus. But certainly, I'll let Chad chime in with his opinion.
It echoes what was just stated, that we were looking at this as another viable option to free up some more capital funds, but we didn't really lean very strongly in one way than another. It's just as gaining some traction in some other local municipalities, and it looked a little bit attractive for the discipline factor of making sure we stay on point with the trade-in. But again, I echo what the trustees have said. It's too new. We don't have enough knowledge on the leasing side of things, and the broker or the leasing company wasn't good enough at getting us good information to help our knowledge standpoint. So I agree 100% with where we ended up, and this was the destination we laid from the committee meeting. We said, let's put it in front of the full board and have further discussion. So I feel as though this outcome is very good, and we'll just get these vehicles back on the depreciation schedule appropriately.
Chad, what's happening?
I was totally in the dark. We have automated lights, and I must not have moved around enough.
In the budget notes, those two vehicles were budgeted. The F-250 was budgeted for 40,000 and the 150 for 30,000. Was there an assumption from another line item for the equipment?
I think that we erred in the fact that we thought the trade-in was above that budget number. You're almost going to hit it exactly with the trade-in value being 11.5 on the 3/4 ton, and I think it's 8,000. We probably expected 9 or 10 on the F-150. So I think that's where, as memory serves me, the difference is.
Are the
Sally?
other items that were budgeted for going to be purchased this year?
I think that all depending on what comes of the trade-in value here. If we don't get it near that trade-in value, then more than likely not.
Sally, what were those two numbers again, please?
40,000 and 30,000.
Yeah, so that if we realize the resale on those vehicles, we're probably coming in 5,500 high here and about 9, so it's about 14.5 over budget.
And there was 90,000 budgeted for a dump truck. And what was the skid loader was 50,000 in the notes.
Yeah, again, that's following the depreciation schedule.
There's
So-
nothing currently lined up on either of those two yet, Chad. I know
No.
they're in the plans, but obviously, if we are out of whack on the budget, one of those two would have to be delayed.
Right, and they're not in the same state of depreciation of what the two we're addressing are.
So we obviously have some latitude of moving those out a little bit.
Yes.
Any other discussion regarding the motion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kynes,
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
Okay, the second item on the agenda basically is a motion from committee to recommend board approval of a purchase of a line tracer / locator from J&R Supply in amount not to exceed $8,706 from account number 51-44-951.
And since it's coming from committee, we do not need a second, so any discussion?
I'm sorry, Mike, how much did you say?
$8,706.
Thank you.
Anything else? If no additional discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes? Was that me?
Yes.
Mr.
Okay, then
Kynes,
yes.
Mr. Kynes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
That's approved.
Okay, the next item again is also a recommendation from committee for board approval for Fairgram to complete an updated water rate study in amount not to exceed $18,700 from account number 51-44-542.
And that's coming from committee, so we do not need a second. Any discussion on this? All right, if there's no discussion, roll call, please.
right. Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Graham,
Quiet, Jack.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kynes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
Okay, the last item is a discussion that was had by Public Works, but no action was taken. So just to get the conversation started, I'm going to make a motion that basically we reinstate the ability for the village to disconnect water service for unpaid water bills.
All right, do we have a second?
Chairman Graham will second that motion.
Mr. Graham will second that, so
yes. Mike, can you repeat that, please? Reinstate?
Yes, they basically, I'm making the motion that the village basically will be back in the position to shut off water service for unpaid bills.
Following the outline that we used to have?
Reinstating it back to pre-COVID.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Yes,
Yes,
Mr.
we have Mr.
Graham.
Graham. So Mary, I just want to ask you, are we basically just rescinding something that we did when we decided not to shut it off? Would it be better to rescind what we did, or are we just, because I don't know if we
Probably
passed.
for the record, we would rescind that portion of the ordinance because there were a lot of different things in that ordinance, as I recall, not just this issue.
Right.
But we can rescind that portion of that ordinance. I don't have the number in front of me, but that covered this aspect. I think that'll be a little cleaner.
Yeah.
Well, then what I will do is I will amend my motion to rescind the portion of the ordinance, which we will look up that number, where the village elected to temporarily suspend any water service terminations.
Mr. Graham, do you second that?
Jeremy Graham will amend his second.
All right, thank you.
And again, we talked about this in Public Works Committee. You know, I don't know what the magnitude of the situation is, but, you know, we're certainly, you know, understand that some people are in difficult situations, but the problem that we seem to be running into is, you know, we're not getting, you know, information from, you know, residents that, you know, they're not in a position to pay. It's simply we have some water meters that are basically like many of the other ones that are not functioning correctly. We're either not getting water readings or we can't get water readings. We've communicated with the residents. We've set up appointments to go in there to make those changes out. And simply when the Public Works employees show up to do the service, they're just denied entry. So at this particular point, it's not been communicated to form concerns relative to COVID or, you know, finance or whatever. But we just feel that we need to do something to move this forward.
Any other discussion?
Kelly is going to verify. I think it's 2020-06.
We'll verify the ordinance number, but we can go ahead and vote on the motion and we can put in the ordinance number when we find that.
Yeah, I'm certainly interested in hearing contrary opinions.
In my position, Mike, I believe that we should proceed with the motion. I think we're at the point where most people are getting back to work, or they, you know, I think we're just to the point
They're
where
either back. Yeah, they're either back to work or they're get a higher level of income on unemployment than they were when they're working. So it just doesn't seem there's many situations that would support continuing.
Right.
I think our delinquency report is really good too, Sally, right? I mean, it's improved tremendously here over the last several months, and Kelly's been doing a great job keeping that up to date. So I think we should go forward too.
And again, if we have somebody with special circumstances, you know, we can always address it.
By all means, yes. You know, I'm not saying it's a, you know, zero tolerance, but certainly it puts us the back where we can, you know, review the special circumstances, but the general practice would be back to business as usual.
Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
that's approved. Anything else?
That is it from Public Works.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to village engineer, and I see we have the report. Seth, anything else we need to add?
No, we've just got a couple highlights. The first one would be the Elida Street project is under construction right now. They just began completing some of the removals, which is great. So that project is kicked off and full steam ahead. And then we still have no update from DCEO regarding funding. And the last item that we've been kind of assisting with is just the Highlands property development meeting that we held, and there's an action item later on the agenda. So that's about it for the engineering report.
All right, thank you. Anything for the engineer?
We verified it is 2020-06 for the ordinance.
Okay, so if you've heard that, we did verify it's ordinance 2020-06 that dealt with the water disconnection, suspension, and other items. So that's what it pertains to.
Many other items.
Right. All right. Let's move on then to community development. Mr. Kimes?
Okay, yes, thank you. On page, what is it, 38 of your packet is the code enforcement officer's report. And there are some remarks on there that are quite interesting. One of them being the violation on the 105 South Church Street, property maintenance code violation, section 3081, and about the rubbish and so forth like that, of removing tires and so forth. And then there is another one that was at 401 West Soper Street, where Attorney Gaziano was sought for some input. Mary, do you have any input on that top complaint?
Yeah, I can tell you on that 401 West Soper Street, I happened to actually meet with neighbors over another issue, and apparently, and I'll follow up with Casper, but that situation has corrected itself, because the people who live across from there told me that it was for the first time in several weeks that it was actually quiet, and that seemed to have dissipated, and they thought that zoning had done something or whatever. So assuming that that has continued to be quiet, I think that situation may have corrected itself, but I'll follow up with Casper on that.
So you're a wait and see attitude on that particular concern?
Right, just to confirm that that all is still good, and that they've stopped doing what was being alleged.
Okay, fine. Has anybody got any other concerns with anything around the village that should be brought to Casper's attention? If so, either email me, contact me, call me on my cell phone or something. Okay, discussion of Memorial Park equipment.
Real quick here, Don, I apologize to interrupt. It is
Okay.
7:28 and I need to go. I need to go get these kids home, but I will join you guys back once I get back to Bago.
All right, thank
Okay.
you for letting us know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye now.
You bet. Memorial Park. Now, Sally Bennett, I was under the assumption that there were grants available for some of the equipment that you and I were looking at in those particular books. Where is the status on that grant? Do you know?
Yeah, I was just referring to the grant that Frank mentioned at the last meeting regarding the trailhead and possibly areas around the trailhead.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
that would be a possibility. So that will be some time before we know how to apply and the entity that needs to apply for that particular grant. That could
Okay.
be something we could work into it, because that's part of what we'd be looking at is trying to have a trailhead, and we could say that the gate is part of that, if that would work. So I think we
That
should
would work.
look at that.
Yeah, okay, fine, that's good. So I'll continue to put that on when we have a meeting of the community development. Okay, discussion of the gate to the Memorial Gardens in Memorial Park. Have we have any input on that? No input? Hello?
Are you looking at cutting a piece of the fence there and putting a gate in so that people can get
Yes.
in and out without hopping over it?
Yes.
And
We have a note, a letter, or whatever you want to say, from an individual that is willing to do some of that work. So I just
Okay.
was wondering what the board is, because of the fact that the last community development meeting, there was only 3 of us, or 4 of us, if you were there at the meeting, so one could not get too much input. Okay, do you want
well,
to discuss that?
if somebody is willing to give a contribution or do the work, I think it's definitely good for the village to explore that avenue. It makes sense to have a gate so that it can be accessed without having to jump over the fence. Whether we need a lock on there to keep people out or not, that's a discussion that we can have. But if somebody's willing to do the work or provide it, we need to follow up with how much that person's willing to do, what the cost may be to the village, and then what, whether we need to make sure that that person's insured or whatever.
Right.
How the work's going to be done.
Yes. And that's the other thing I wanted to make sure of, is if I have the okay to go ahead and do that, as long as all the parameters are met.
Just speaking out loud from a board member, my thought would be that you would contact that individual to get the details and then bring it back to the committee for the committee to discuss and see if that's that's how we should go, or we bring it back to the board and the board can decide, is that how we want to go?
Okay, I'll get some information and see just exactly what they basically had in mind. So that takes care of number 3. Number 4, discussion of the property on Benton and Bluff Street. Have you heard anything back from the proprietor on that along the trailhead? Right?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do we want to keep that on the agenda and push forward with that, or does the board want to go in a different direction?
I'd be willing to talk to the owner of the property to find out. I need to actually talk to the owner of the building that we already had the appraisal on too, because I see it's still for sale. And that is really the building that we would be looking at if we did receive a grant. That would be the initial building we would look at, because it already has connections to water and sewer. And it's kind of set out the way we would want it to be set up. So
that's exactly where I wanted to know what you want to, and the same thing with the property on Elida.
Correct.
Do we want to, since it's basically an undeveloped piece of property, do we want to go after that one with eminent domain, or what do we want to do with that one?
Well, when I first came on the board in 2009, the term eminent domain, or ED, was a negative word, and the trustees always stayed away from saying that word. So I don't know that we're in a position where we want to go down that road for that piece of property at this point.
Okay. That's why I'm just asking, Frank. I don't know where the board stands on that.
Exactly. My position is I would rather not do that, because we don't have really a development that we're looking at doing. It's not as though we're going to expand the village hall or the police department. We need that property. If the board is interested in purchasing that property, I would be glad to initiate discussions with the real estate agent for the seller. Again, we've negotiated with this person over the last 12 years. Have never come up with a number that we've both been satisfied with. I think the latest appraisal was 8,000. So I mean, I'd be
All right.
willing to move forward on behalf of the board to start negotiations if that's what the board wants.
Do you want me to make a motion to that effect? I will.
You may make any motion you want, and then it can be seconded. We can discuss it, and then we can decide what we want to do.
Okay. Does the board want to discuss the property that is adjacent to the police garage for possible purchase? I'll make that motion.
All right. So
I'm confused. I'm sorry.
So your motion is basically that you want the village to discuss with the current property owner for the property that's located on Elida Street, just south of the village police department garage, to discuss the possible purchase of his property.
Yes.
Correct? All right.
Yes,
Do we have
I
a
will.
second? Do we have a second for that motion? All right. Since
So
I'm
we
not
can get
hearing-
into, so we can
Go
get
ahead.
into discussion. I will second the motion.
All right, so we have a second, so now we can discuss the pending motion. Any discussion on it?
I believe it would be valuable for the village to have it, but certainly not anywhere near the asking price. If the transaction price were somewhere near the appraised value, I would be in support of it.
Frank, we still like, what, a 50% gap or something between appraised value and listed or something?
I think the appraised value was 8,000. I think the listing price is 20-ish, 20,000, somewhere in there. 25, okay.
So he doesn't really want to sell it.
Right,
I think you have to, before we spend the time and effort to negotiate and see if he's willing to come down, I mean, what would be the use purpose? What are we gonna do with the property? You know, if we have not identified a need or a purpose, you know, then is that worth the time and our village president's time to even talk to them? I think.
I don't know. I don't know that we have an immediate need, but being that it's adjacent to currently owned village property, if there was ever the need to expand the police garage or the village office, it certainly would be advantageous to own it. You know, so again, it'd be more of a placeholder, and certainly that's why my comment is, you know, at the approximate appraised value, it'd probably be worth having, even if we had no immediate use for it. But to overpay for something when we have no target, then it doesn't make any sense.
any other thoughts?
I don't think it would hurt Frank to talk to him again. I think he knows exactly what he doesn't have, and so we could approach it that way. I think that it would be good for the expansion of the police garage, or for if we ever put in a different village hall. We're getting bigger, and we're gonna need some different rooms. So, okay, that's my opinion.
So if we pass this motion, Frank, it's just for you to have conversations. There's no purchasing up to your limit or anything like that, I presume, right? It's, you know, you talk to him, come up with a deal if there is a deal to come up with, and bring it back, or?
Absolutely. The motion is limiting it just to discuss, does not authorize anybody to make a purchase or anything else. So that's really all that's there, is the motion to discuss it. Any other thoughts or discussion? All right, hearing none, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Graham did not come back, correct?
Correct, he's still not back.
Mr. Kynes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
All right, so that's approved.
Okay, thank you for that one. Now we're going to talk about the 4th of July. I have been getting and watching, and for any input about our fireworks display. It looks as though that we don't want to be in the business to sell tickets. We certainly don't have enough people who could police the 6-foot apart displays. So I don't think we ought to have anybody, if it's going to be, that is one of the criteria, then I don't think we even use the bleachers or anything at the school to watch the fireworks. So Frank, have you heard anything lately from the Department of Public Health?
Yes, Dr. Martell did email me, and I'll talk about it later on. I guess we
Okay.
talk about the parades separately, but right now, what she did say and what the governor did say at the end of last week is we will be quickly hitting the bridge phase. And if everything goes well with the bridge phase and the numbers keep coming down and the metrics are good, by June 11th, we will be in phase 5. What phase 5 means is basically we're back to where we were before COVID started. So there are no restrictions for anything, anywhere, anything. It's back to, we have nothing. It's like we were back in January of 2020. So in that sense, by June 11th, if we keep going, we can have everybody gather like we've always had for 4th of July fireworks without any restrictions.
Well, that would be just great. So we can look for the bridge phase from on June 11th. So
well, the bridge phase will occur, I believe, in the next week or so, and then that bridge phase does increase from 15 people per, I think it's 1,000 square feet, to 30 people per 1,000 square feet. So it doubles the amount of capacity for an outside event, whether it's a parade or the fireworks. And then it allows for increases in other situations as well. Within that bridge phase.
Anything about masks? Masks.
In the bridge phase, it's going to be the same as now, except we will be able to have increased amounts of people. Depending upon the situation, it'll either be an increase in percentages or an increased number of people in the bridge phase, but you'd still be required to wear masks. But my understanding, looking at phase 5, when you look at the column down phase 5, it says no restrictions down every single row, all the way down the column, no restrictions. So in my mind, that means that we do not need to wear masks. We do not need to do things. But again,
well,
we don't
that's the way I understood it too. Yeah.
We don't know until we get to June 11th what's actually going to happen. And that's the difficulty, is we're trying to be prognosticators and know what we're going to be doing in the future, but we don't, because we have to rely on other people to make the decisions. So
that's right. And we only have one other meeting before the 4th of July as a village meeting. So that's we have to come up with something by the next, not this meeting, but by the next meeting, to have some guidelines to hand out or print or do something for our 4th of July. Okay, thank you very much on that. And with that, if nobody has anything else, any new business or anything they'd like to discuss with community development, I guess, who do we go from here? We go to Mary, huh?
All right. Well, thank you, Don. I don't have anything down for village attorney.
That's correct, because my comment's going to be under you with MediaCom.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mary. Finance Committee. Jeremy's not here, but I see we have the purchasing policy. Julie, if you're able to speak about that.
Sure. Let me get back in there. So I think Jeremy or Sally, one of them routed this to everybody maybe a week ago, and then we took it back into finance, just kind of a final once over. We met on Thursday night. We had a few minor changes that we tried to highlight in the final version of this. I know that purchase order thing that we had in theory, but I guess in practice it wasn't happening. And so we were kind of, I think Trustee McKinnon had an issue with us not having something in writing for invoices over 500. So we decided maybe we could go with the verbal orders over $500 would require a written quote, and that can even be an email quote, just so we have record of it. The only other change was in the committee chairperson approval dollar amounts. We had originally said 7,500 or less, and then 7,500 or more for the Board of Trustees, and I didn't like the fact that 7,500 was a little vague. So we just made it clear that anything 7,500 or more that should go to the board at $74.99.99 and below would be the committee chairperson's limit. Two minor changes, but I think everyone's had a chance to look at this. So the committee has, I guess we're bringing it from committee for approval. I'm sorry, I don't know the right words I'm supposed to say, but we did approve it in finance with these changes, and now we're bringing it to the board.
All right, so since it was approved at finance, we do not need a second if you're making a motion to adopt this purchasing policy. And any discussion regarding this? And I don't know where this comes in. I've always heard that the village president has a $10,000 spending limit, and I don't see that on here. So I don't know if it's intended to restrict that or if this is an addition to that.
Sally, I don't think that was in the old policy, was it?
Right.
No, it wasn't. It's always just, we didn't have a written policy before the one that this one's replacing, but I didn't see that in there either. It's just always been a known thing.
I would feel better if we had something in writing, whether the village president has the authority or not. It doesn't really matter to me. But again, that's why I said, I've always thought that the village president had a $10,000 spending limit, but I don't know where it actually was stated in an ordinance before. I know that at one point the village president was paid, or I think it was $20,000, and then there was a motion, and it was approved years ago that it would be changed from 20,000 back down to 10,000 for the salary. But then there was a $10,000 budget that the village president had and got to utilize. And I don't know if that's where the $10,000 spending limit came in, because then at one point then in the last 12 years, that $10,000 budget amount was taken away. And it was taken away because we just didn't have funds to have that extra money. We took part of that and put it towards IML classes and other things. So again, I think it would be best if the village either had an ordinance that specifically stated the village president has the authority to spend up to 10,000, or we put it in a purchasing policy. So we have something in writing that lets everybody know that the village president either does or does not have the authority. I don't know if we need to have the village president with a separate authority. That's up to the board. And Mary, maybe you can chime in with maybe your thoughts as to whether you feel it's necessary. I could see a time where there could be a mayor or village president that maybe doesn't get along with the board and decides to spend up to $10,000, and the board really should have control over the funds of the budget.
Yeah, I think though that the reason it's set up that way is just because it is the village president, to give that person the ability to just do some community sort of things without having to run to the board. I mean, you always have brought everything to the board, so it's not an issue, but it just would give you that ability or that power to decide that you wanted to use it for that. I mean, certainly if somebody's using it for what are later determined improper purposes or things that aren't recommended, I'm sure that person wouldn't be in office very long. And I too would recommend that we get this in the form, and we can pass these, but I keep moving toward wanting to do things by resolution so that we can find them later. We just seem to have issues from the past of certain policies getting put into place and then we don't know where they are. And we try to comb back through minutes and things of that nature. So
this is Mike McKinnon.
My recommendation.
Yeah, this is Mike McKinnon. I would recommend that we enhance this policy to reflect the spending limit of the $10,000 for the village president, and then we bring it back for approval through a resolution, as Attorney Gaziano suggested at our next meeting.
Okay. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
I will, in the meantime, I will check because that amount for the village president might be in the statute. I
That's
know
what I was thinking as well.
so
So,
I will have that information by the next meeting with the adjustments.
great. Thank you very much, Sally. So there is a pending motion. Do we want to have a motion to withdraw the pending motion or move forward with it? Lay it over? Do you want to lay it over to the next meeting?
Well, which, are you talking about my motion to approve it?
Correct.
'Cause I can withdraw that. I think, putting it in the framework of an ordinance makes sense to me. I know Mary's been pushing us to do that.
Okay. So,
So you're withdrawing?
I'm withdrawing that, yes. Thank you.
all right.
Sure, Jeremy tells me to do one thing, Mike McKinnon.
Sorry.
Uh-huh. I know where you live.
You do.
Keep a close eye out for it, would you?
Anything else from finance?
I don't think there was anything else on the agenda for us.
All right. Thank you, Julie. We'll move on to police committee.
All right, thank you. Number one is barricade for Benton and Soper. We did discuss this at the police committee meeting, and I thought it best to bring it to the board. There's been several complaints about people driving north in the downtown, where we have a one-way that you can only go south. Sergeant Half came up with the idea of blocking the northbound presumed area with a barricade, leaving enough opening for a large trucks or fire truck to be able to get through. So, Sergeant Half, you want to have any more input on that?
We've just had a lot of complaints and coming from the businesses in the downtown area, vehicles that continue to go northbound in the one-way area. And I'd like to just put a barricade on half the street, right at Soper and Benton, to try to curtail that a little bit more than just signage. Because obviously just the signage is not working and people are continuing to do so.
Now we have this on our directed patrols as well, but obviously if you see a marked patrol car, people pay more attention and less attention when it's not there. So a lot of these things are occurring when there's not a police car in the area. So it's hard to catch these people. We just hear there's cars still going northbound in that one block. The idea was to put the barricades to the east side of the street coming from the south, with a do not enter sign or something like that to limit, or as a casual reminder that it's a one-way street. People are still, that we have stopped and either cited or warned about it, have said, well, I didn't realize it was one way again. I thought it was two-way. So apparently even over the time that it's been one way again, it's not caught on to the normal travelers apparently.
I have a question that maybe Chad could respond to as well. My first thought is I hate to put up a barricade because it limits the maneuverability of anybody driving. And if you need to be able to maneuver around a vehicle that may be already stopped there, you now have to get out and move the barricade to get your vehicle past. So I see it in downtown Rockford when I have to go past the sign that says stop for pedestrians. It's right in the middle and there are cars parked on both sides and you can't maneuver around the cars because you're going to hit that sign. So that's one concern. But the second thing is, can we deal with the issue by having yellow striping on the east side? So instead of the barricade coming out 4 feet or 5 feet, can we have yellow striping that comes out 4 or 5 feet so that a vehicle turning will see the yellow striping and understand that, yes, that's not where you can turn. And then at the same time you have yellow striping, maybe you have arrows the white arrows that show turning left, straight, and right that will take up that intersection. So a vehicle knows that that's the only way you can go is going out to the left, right, or straight, and a vehicle coming in will see the arrows and know that they're not supposed to be going up against the arrows. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, we would try anything. We were just trying to keep, I know striping costs, money to put that down, how long it lasts. We just thought this would be a simple thing to try for maybe a little while. And like I said, it's put it to the far east side of the intersection of Benton going northbound. So it just kind of stands out. It's really going to be, I think, covering the area where cars are already parked, but it's be something to be more visible. A lot of people aren't looking to see the signs that say one way, do not enter, and they're not paying attention. We were just thinking that, as a temporary thing until maybe people get more conditioned to doing that, they'll realize it's a one way and stop going that way.
Sure.
Very limited cost in doing it this way. How much it hinders on traffic, I don't know what it would be. It was just a temporary thing to put up for now until those people that still insist that it's a two-way traffic down that street get the idea that it's now a one-way.
Have we had any input from business owners? Do they know that we're going to be putting up a barricade?
No, not really any input, just them saying, yeah, there's cars go through here quite often with going the wrong way.
Okay. I suppose if we do go that route, I would ask that we send out a notice to the business owners that we'll be putting up a barricade and why. And if they have any issues or find out any issues, to have them let us know, just so we can monitor that and see if it's going to be an issue.
Sure. And we can put it out over Facebook and things like that, just as a reminder. And the fact that a barricade will be put there once we find the right type of barricade that we can put up there. And we'll make sure it doesn't obstruct the traffic coming southbound down Benton Street. Still have the ability to make your left and right turns and then go straight across the intersection as well. Like I said, it's more of a deterrence to keep people from going north down that 100 block of Benton Street, South Benton Street.
Sure.
Okay. Number 2 is the new officer sworn in is a full-time officer. His name is Matthew Lane. He was sworn in on April 29th, 2021, and he did work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with Sergeant Happ. Number 3 is Chief White's probation. 1-year probation is up tomorrow, and we did discuss this, and it was bring it to the board for a vote of a increase of 1.5%, which will be a new salary of $83,230 coming from line item 0143422.
I assume that means he successfully completed his probation.
That is correct.
And is this motion coming from committee?
Yes.
All right. So we do not need a second. Any discussion? I'd just like to congratulate. I just want to congratulate Chief White for, first of all, stepping in as the interim chief, and then after being selected as the chief for the service you've given for the year, and looking forward to more years of your service.
Thanks, Frank. And Sally, to answer your question, as long as I make it through this meeting tonight, I'll make it a year.
Thank you.
Frank, I do have a question. I know there's been past discussion, and I don't know exactly where we landed relative to future increases going to, date of hire, or so would this increase carry Sergeant White through to Chief White to the end of the year, or to an anniversary date of this increase, or where does that stand?
Can I answer that? Can I answer that real quick?
Yeah.
My 21 years is done today. I'm starting my 22nd year as of today. My probationary period for the chief is tomorrow.
Okay, but we are on. did we go to anniversary dates though? I guess I'm just
Right,
trying
that's
to
what we're
confirm.
discussing tomorrow. We have an admin team supervisors meeting tomorrow to discuss that issue along with the evaluation procedure. So we will bring that up and then report back to the village board.
Okay, well, obviously with the dates only being one day apart, it makes it real clean if we go that route, so.
Right, and that would be my preference, and but we'll discuss that tomorrow. But thanks for bringing that up. Anything else? So if there's no other discussion regarding the motion, a roll call, please.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
He's not
Mr.
ready.
Kimes,
Yes.
We do have Randy Cook that joined us.
I'm sorry, I didn't see them.
All right, thank you. Is that it from police? You're on mute, Jeff. At least you look like.
Well, Stan. Okay, thank you. Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. We'll go on to admin team and clerk. I see that we have one of our administrative assistants, Sue Emmert, has been, I guess, temp for hire. And the recommendation from the clerk is to offer her a position for directly with the village. Do we have a salary or an hourly amount and number of hours?
It's the same as, yes.
So it would be at $15.50 per hour.
Their probation will not, will continue until she makes the 6 months.
With probation to continue for 6 month
No,
period?
no.
Well, to
From
start
the
6 months
hire.
from the hire date will be the probation period.
Just like we did with Gibbler.
So if we could have a motion to offer the position to Sue Emmert at $15.50 an hour. She'll be on probation for 6 months, starting her first day.
Yeah.
And how many hours is it? 30 hours or less?
Less than 30
Less than 30 hours per week.
on an average.
Yeah.
Mike McKinnon will make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Julie will second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion?
I just wanted to say that I think it's wonderful that we have this additional staff. I can tell you that I'm now receiving copies of old minutes that I've been seeking for years so that I can get them scanned in and I'm able to search them for village issues. So wonderful.
Thank you for that, Mary. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, if we could have roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham still absent,
Correct.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
All right, that's approved. The next item we have on the list is Christine Gibbler, the other administrative assistant who was on a 6-month probationary period, has now completed that, I believe successfully, and asking that she continue in her employment. And there'll be a raise of 50 cents per hour. So that'll change from $15.50 per hour to $16 per hour. And we would need a motion for that. And when would the raise take place? What pay period? May 16th. So starting May 16th will be when it'll be effective. So if we could have a motion for
Julie will
that.
make the motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Mike McKinnon will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? If no discussion, roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
All right, that's approved. Okay, and we'll go on to my items. You've got my report. Next item, MediaCom and related telephone internet service with the village. I believe Attorney Gaziano was going to provide some information.
That's correct. I've been in discussion with Caitlin at MediaCom, and she has escalated this to certain other individuals that are higher on the chain, not to the level yet of the attorney, because most of this they deal with without the attorney. But what I'm going to be, I'll be doing an email to you, and I've gotten, I know, information from Chief White. But one of the things that we're looking for is putting together a packet of information that that can be sent up the chain, so that they know exactly what contacts have been made, in terms of the complaints, and any update that you can give me in terms of any emails sent. And I have talked to Kelly, but any from Chief White, from Sally Bennett, anybody else, for any updated listings of issues or problems that you have had. It was a very frank discussion that I said, there comes a point, I don't care what a contract says, that when you don't deliver the service, and it's honestly, and I use the word that it's just a crap product, not my normal language, but I think it fits for what the village has had to experience, that there just comes a point. And I was led to believe that, and not a guarantee, but that it has been in the past that people have been let out of the contract if they're that dissatisfied. And the concern was that perhaps who had been contacted before wasn't high enough up the chain to be able to make the decision, and just gave this pet answer of, no, we're not going to do anything. So I'd like to get that together within the next week. We know that we have a ways to go before the 3-year time period is up. But sooner rather than later, I think if we can get out of this and move on to Comcast or whatever other method the village desires, I think we'd be further ahead. So I'm going to do an email to everybody asking you to please update your information, and if anything and everything you have, so I can put together this packet and who you might have talked to. She's putting it together, or checking on her end through the chain of things that they have, but I just want to be able to show from the village's point of view what all of the problems have been.
Wasn't there a time frame in there where they were allowed to correct any issues that we had? And we've kept bringing to them, and those issues haven't been corrected. So
there is that time frame. The issue, though, is that I want to be able to document who contacted who, when, and what was expressed and what was resolved and or not resolved, so that we can show exactly what has happened. Just like Chief White, how you had given me, and I don't know if it was you and Sergeant Half together, or just you, or just Sergeant Half, that put together that listing that went from January through like March 15th, that said all of the different issues that you had. I would like that from, Public Works as well, if that's been an issue, from anybody, front office, just anything and everything that we can show what contact has been attempted and what the problems are that haven't been corrected. But I'll be able to get that email out to you in the next few days, and would ask that within the next week or so, if you could get that to me so I can put that together and get it over to MediaCom.
we've got a few more updates from our list that we've been keeping track of about how many issues we've had, when they've happened, and all that sort of thing. So we'll definitely get that to you.
Okay. That's all I have on that.
All right, thank you, Mary, for the update. We'll move on to nothing new from Comcast. We're waiting for MediaCom, and then once we find out where MediaCom is going to be, then we'll reach back out to Comcast for their latest proposal. Item 4, the affirmation of village president ordering appraisals for newly acquired village property. There was a meeting with Seth and Chad and Mike McKinnon, Mary Gaziano, and me to discuss the Mantle Development property. And in that discussion, it came up, I believe, Mary, you brought it up that you felt it would be good for the village to have appraisals of the property. And that way we would have a better understanding of the value. And we have different types of property. We have some that are that have services, the water and sewer already to the property. We have other ones that are undeveloped. We have some that are platted but not developed. We have some that are unplatted. So Mary suggested, and she did already have at that time, a quote from an appraiser as to what it would cost to have all of those parcels appraised. And it seemed to be relatively inexpensive. I thought it was a pretty decent price for all of that to allow us to get at least an idea of what the values are. So we went ahead and had that done, but we also wanted to get the ratification from the board to basically say that, yes, that was the correct decision to move forward with the appraisals. So I believe the appraisal is in the packet, and
Frank, this
yes.
Because of that, now that we own that property, what is the possibility that we have, and this is going to go to Chad also, is to get that bike path or walking path hooked up to in front of Sullivan's there, so that these kids aren't walking into the street and everything. What's the possibility of that?
Right, so that's something where we talked about it initially, and we're gonna look to see whether a developer will come in and purchase the property from the village, and we would make that a requirement with the developer, or there are other possibilities. So we really, haven't come back with a solid idea of whether the village would put it in or whether we would require a developer to put it in. But it's something that we initially discussed at our meeting, and I believe we'll follow up with that at a later time.
Okay, I was just thinking because we are having ELIDA being worked on, and the possibility that they might be able to just put that in because it's what, a block long, roughly, from Micron to Sullivan's. I don't know what the cost will be, and that's where I'm putting it towards Chad to see if maybe what the cost might be while they're here in town. That way we get that headache over with. And I understand as far as getting a developer to do it. But years ago, they were supposed to put it in originally. And fortunately, we gave them the right to vacate a road that was supposed to go through there. And he was supposed to do it and he didn't.
Stan, I'm just going to jump in. What you're bringing up is different than the affirmation of the appraisal that's currently on the agenda. But since we're talking about the subject, I don't have to come back to it at a later time. So we're just going to use this as new business number 1. And you're bringing up a new business item as to the path or the bike path.
Right. Sorry.
So that's okay. I just want to keep on track and keep discussing it, but I want to make sure that we have it in the minutes the correct way.
Yep, so, that's fine. No problem.
So we'll go with that first, and Chad or Seth, if you have a response, but go ahead.
I'll just offer that, yeah, in the terms of the filing against Mantle Development, we did have Fairground came up with a price point based on unit prices of that walking path, but secondary to that, We are in the midst of a plan set review, and if it's infancy, that would take care of a portion of that, where we did already share it with the builder that the walking path is required, so they've already engineered it in their design. So a portion of it may be taken care of if this new growth comes to the village. And then, of course, we could present a price, but I assume right now, not looking at it, with the ADA ramps, we're probably talking over 40 grand for that next one. Again, it's over about 10 years ago when we looked at it, and the contractor in town was going to do a portion of it for about 20 grand. But just to reiterate, a portion or the extension north of Cash Drive is already under consideration with a plausible development. It's in early review for plan set. The next stretch, I apologize, that was south of Cash Drive, from Cash Drive north to Sullivan's. That's one that's still hung out. And in our meetings, we've discussed making sure we get enough sale price possibly from the property, from the real estate. That would be one of the costs that we would expect to cover to be able to complete. Likewise, I don't know where the money would come from to complete it this year with the street project. The unfortunate side is we're doing a large paving project, so the small paver, the 10-foot paver, is not going to be in town, and the contractors usually don't give a discount if they have to mobilize the small paver to do the walking path. But sum up, half of it's under consideration, be taken care of right now. The next stretch would probably be $40,000 to $50,000.
Okay, well, thank you, Chad, for the information.
I apologize, Frank.
No, that's okay, Stan, I don't mind. Just wanted to clarify that. So any other discussion on the bike path item?
And just reiterate, we do have an actual cost estimate, probable opinion of cost from engineering from a couple of years ago when we were putting all the numbers together against Mantle Development.
Do you know how much the total amount would be for the whole part of the bike path to be completed?
Not without looking. We could provide it, but we got to do a little digging.
But what is this 40 or 50,000? What portion is that?
That would be from Cash Drive north to Sullivan's south entrance. That would include the two ADA access points.
Okay.
Thanks, Chad.
Sorry.
Nope, that's okay, we need to do. All right, we'll move then back to the affirmation of the appraisals, and the total amount was $3,400. And just looking for a motion to affirm the expense of $3,400 for the appraisals for the property that we acquired from Mantle Development.
Mike McKinnon will make that motion.
Julie will second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right, if no discussion, roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. Kynes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
All right, that's approved. The next item we have is authorizing Fair Graham to be the village liaison with potential purchasers or developers for the Mantle Development property. Again, when we had our meeting previously with Trustee McKinnon and Chad and Seth and Mary and I, we looked at who should be the consistent contact point for developers, and we felt it was best that Fair Graham would be that contact point, since they know the UDO, they know this type of business, they know the developers. We just felt it'd be better to have one point of contact that's readily available. So we're making a recommendation that Fair Graham be the initial contact, and we wanted to get the board approval for that.
Mike McKinnon will make that motion.
And do we have a second?
Julie will second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion regarding this?
Is the woman that was involved with that still with Fairgram?
I know you're talking about the one lady that was hired in the last couple of years. And I don't know, Seth, if that's the individual that would be working with this, or if it's just going to be you or somebody that's more involved with the village on day-to-day business.
I guess I don't know who that is off the top of my head, but it will be me that's dealing directly with the developers. I'll be the point of contact, as I have the most knowledge at this point with the Highlands as far as Fairgram's concerned.
All right.
Okay.
And if we could have some clarification just for the record, is this going to be on an hourly basis, or how is it going to be determined, the expenditure from the village for the services?
That it would be an hourly basis based on as requested, as necessary. Obviously we try to limit as much as we can, but it would just be under our general services agreement with the village that we approve every year in January. So that would be the intent.
So the idea would be that if any of the trustees, any of the employees, office staff receive phone calls or emails from interested developers or interested people wanting to purchase the property, that we would then refer them all to Seth at Fairgram and allow Seth to then filter through them, find out what they're asking for, provide them what information they're needing. And then also to make sure that we are following the UDO in terms of if we need to have any developer put down escrow money or anything like that, at what point we do that. Because I know for years, we give a lot of free legal advice, a lot of free engineering time, a lot of trustee and employee time to prospective developers and buyers of property that we never get reimbursed for. So that's partly why we wanted the UDO in place, so that we could utilize the terms of that. So again, Seth, just make sure that you're on top of the UDO and at what point that might trigger. We also talked about having this same committee or subcommittee or ad hoc committee, whatever you want to call it, meet every so often, and as we have prospective developers, so that we can meet, talk about it, and then bring stuff back to the board as a group. So any additional discussion? Any questions? All right.
How many met in this group?
There were 5 people that met. It'd be Trustee McKinnon, Public Works Director Chad Insko, Fairgram's Seth Gromwalder, village engineer, Mary Gaziano, the village attorney.
I miss Mary.
And me. Yep. Nope, that's okay.
I knew I missed so much.
That's okay. You got it on that. All right, if there's no discussion, then roll call, please.
Mr. Graham, did we get back?
Not yet.
Mr. Kimes?
Yes.
Mr. Kimes? Yep, okay, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, that's approved. Okay. And at this point, we do have people that were elected in this last election. And what I do want to do first is we do have 2 people who were current members that were serving that will not be serving after tonight. I have the pleasure of one of them sitting to my right, which is this way. Although when I'm looking there, it looks like I'm going to my left, but it's to my right. And Lori Morgan, and Julie, you'll probably be sympathetic to this too. I asked Lori to serve because we were in need of this. I probably understated the duties and the time spent, and I twisted an arm or 2.
No, you would never do that.
Yeah, I think I did.
You can take that back 12 years ago to mine.
There you go.
Lori knows how to get out of it. She moves.
She did. She found the weak spot in all of this.
I think Stan says he believes that 16 years ago too.
Right? So, but I do appreciate the time where you spent. I know she has two daughters in school. She's involved in that. She had a huge transition in her work life over the past couple of years. She's been a big asset for the 2 years that we've had her here. I wish we could have had her longer, but I understand, life changes and people have to move on and do what they need to do. But for the 2 years you've been here, I appreciate what you've done. We do have a certificate for you, so I will give that to you.
I don't know if you need this, like official.
Oh, we have an official resignation letter, so.
I brought my email that I didn't.
That's
I don't know
okay.
why.
That's okay. So we have the official resignation. And then we also have a plaque for you, Lori, for your time of service.
Thank you
So
so much.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, it's been an honor to serve, and I have learned a lot. I had no idea what I was getting into. So thank you for everyone who put up with all my, like, what about this? And maybe we do it this way? And I don't understand questions. I appreciate everything.
Thank you, Lori.
Anyway.
Thanks, Lori. I'm gonna miss all your good questions.
Thanks for your service, Lori.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
She moved still within the Winnebago School District,
Yeah.
but she's not that far away. So if you have any questions, she's still
Will
accessible.
not be running for that open school board seat, though.
No.
No.
So. And then, so thank you, Lori. And then we do have Stan Malagranda, and Stan's term is up. We did not have somebody run for his spot, basically. So we have an open spot. Stan has been serving. He's not been currently residing in the village. He's been temporarily displaced, as we've been discussing at each of the meetings. But at this point, since his term is up, I do not feel comfortable recommending that he be appointed to continue, since he is currently not living in the village and we don't know residential status because of the lawsuit that's currently pending. So I do want to thank Stan for your service to this point. I'm not going to hide the fact that if Stan does move back into the village, he would be the person that I would appoint to come back to the board. And by statute, I do have up to 60 days to make my recommendation to the board. So I am going to hold it open. I would ask in the meantime, if anybody, trustees or employees, if you do have a recommendation for somebody to fill the vacancy, I would ask that you notify me of this person. Because if Stan is not able to take the position within 60 days, we do need to then fill it, whether it be for a temporary time period or for the full 2-year time period until the next election. But I just wanted to put that out there so we all have an understanding of where things sit. So Stan, I'm going to wait to see your situation before ultimately terminating you and giving you a plaque and all that for your service, because you may be coming back on sometime soon. So, and then I did talk to Stan today, and he did say that there is a court date on May 20th. We may find out more. So again, I'll report to the board and let the board know where we're at with that situation. So now we do have 2 vacant positions. We also had 4 people that were elected. We had, in the April election, we had Trustee McKinnon, we had Trustee Graham, we also had Village Clerk Sally Huggins, and then we also have the Village President, me, that was elected. And there were, nobody contested it. The election results are back in, and that they are certified. So we now may appoint or swear those people in to assume their positions. What I would ask is that Sally Huggins be sworn in first, and then once she's sworn in, then she may swear in the other people. In the past, we've always had Attorney Gaziano in this situation. Since I'm elected, I don't feel comfortable swearing her in and then having her swear me in. So we've had Attorney Gaziano do this function. And I would ask at some point, Mary, if you could draft a resolution that states it, because I don't know if we actually have it in resolution form, but have a resolution that states that aside from the statutory people that are allowed to swear people in, that we also have our village attorney.
Okay.
And if you do that, and then we can bring it to the board at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
All right, thank you, Mary. At this time, I'd ask that you swear in Sally Jo Huggins as the village.
Okay, Sally, if you please raise your right hand. I state your name,
I, Sally Jo Huggins,
having been duly elected,
having been duly elected,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village clerk
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village clerk
in and for the village of Winnebago
in and for the village of Winnebago,
to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
All right, well, congratulations again, Sally. We were just talking before the meeting, and she's been the village clerk since 1985. So she has quite a bit of experience, and for the past 12 years, I've been lucky enough to have her be the village clerk and continue with it. So I'm glad that she's been reelected. For 4 more years.
That's my plan.
Good deal. So now we'll have you swear in. We do have Trustee McKinnon who's available,
And you,
and me. Yep.
but Jeremy didn't
And
get back.
we will see if Jeremy
Gets
Graham
back later.
gets back in. We'll have him sworn in later in the meeting.
Okay. I'm gonna do you
Sure.
together.
Okay. So Mike, we're going to do ours together then.
Okay. Raise your right hand. State your name and repeat after me. I,
I, Franklin J. Eubank Jr.,
I'm Michael McKinnon,
having been duly elected,
having been duly
have been duly elected,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will
faithfully discharge
the duties of
duties
of village trustee
in and for
and in for
the village of
the village of
Winnebago,
the village of Winnebago,
to the best of my ability,
according to
to the best of my abilities.
so help me God.
So help me
So help me God.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can stop at the office sometime and sign your paper, okay? Mike?
Okay. Yes.
And thank you, Mike, for running for that position.
You're welcome.
Do we need?
I only wanted the camera on so long, I've run out of battery power.
That's okay. Thank you for doing that. All right. And as we said, if Jeremy Graham comes back on, then we will swear him in tonight. Otherwise, we will do it at another time. And the next item we have the appointment of Drew Pearson to the village board as trustee. So we do have the vacancy from Lori Morgan, and I was able to receive a recommendation from Trustee Graham that Drew Pearson was interested in becoming a trustee. So they talked about it, and then I was able to talk to Drew myself, and I believe that Drew will be a good asset for the village to being a trustee. And Drew is here in person and is willing to take the position. And I would ask the board to approve his appointment. We're going to have a roll call. So if we could, Mary, do we need a motion with an appointment, or do they vote on it, or do we just?
You really don't need to, because it's just by the consensus of the board that if anybody objected, because it's your right to appoint them.
All right. So does anybody object to the appointment of Drew Pearson as village trustee to serve until the next village-wide election? Okay, hearing no objection. Congratulations, Drew.
Thank you.
And we will have,
We'll swear it, yes.
yes, Sally will swear you in, so I'll let her proceed.
State your name and repeat after me. I,
Drew Pearson,
having been duly appointed,
having been duly appointed,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of village trustee
the duties of village trustee
in and for
in and for
the Village of Winnebago
the Village of Winnebago
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. If you send it over, he can sign.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then sign that, please.
Okay.
All right, so we have a new member to our board.
Congratulations, Drew.
Welcome, Drew.
Sorry. All right, so now let me get back to where we were. So we'll move on then to, oh, I also wanted to state that my assumption is that each of the current trustees and those that were sworn in would like to stay in the same positions that they were for the committees, in the same roles. And so everyone will be reappointed to what they were doing in the chair position that he or she was in. Drew will be appointed to Finance Committee and then also Community Development, which are the two that Lori was involved with.
What?
Finance and Community Development.
Okay.
We, oh, and we do have Trustee Graham out here personally. So you aren't quite in the picture. If you come over by Drew, we'll all kind of move over a little bit so you can be in the picture. Well, we're going to have you be sworn in because we're just at the point of swearing in everybody. So if you want to be front and center, you can stand over by here if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay.
Love to.
All right.
They can stand with me.
I love it.
All right.
Did I miss everybody else's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
State your name and repeat after me.
I, Jeremy Graham,
Having been duly elected.
Elected, yeah.
Elected.
is that a question?
Yeah.
Duly elected?
Yeah.
Do solemnly swear
Solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of village trustee
the duties of village trustee
in and for the Village of Winnebago
in and for the Village of Winnebago
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It was typed wrong. I'm sorry.
That's right. Well, congratulations, Jeremy.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. And thank you for getting back here in time. It
Got here
is
about 8:35.
8:35. Yep. All right. So as I was saying, all the trustees will be in the positions they were. The only issue we have is that with Stan not being on the board, we do not have a police chairman. And we only have 2 members on police. Julie, you're on police. And
Yes,
Who else?
is Don?
Don is.
Yes, Don
Don
Kine.
is- Okay.
I
Julie,
can
would
chair it
you-
until, I can chair it until Stan comes back.
Okay.
Dan.
Thank you.
Dad, I think Stan's head just swelled about 4 times. He looks like somebody stole his dog a few minutes ago.
Oh, no. All right, well, thank you, Julie, for offering to do that. Then you'll be appointed as the interim police committee chairperson.
That seems to be my role anyway. I do that
Yes,
for Jeremy too.
you do it so well. So, all right, thank you for offering that. And so then let's move on to future meeting dates.
Frank, before we do that, what about Stan's position as the Liquor Commission chairman?
Oh, that's right. Thank you for bringing that up. We do have, oh, it's Jeremy. We do have two members. I have not talked to either of them. I will reach out to Mr. O'Rourke and to Ms. Jeffers and see if one of them would like to be the chairperson. And then we'll look at possibly having a person appointed to the Liquor Commission. And Mary, if you can just remind me, if you can, we can talk about it later this week as to how to approach that.
Okay.
Because I do have some ideas that I've always thought it was interesting that the village president was not the Liquor Commission chairperson because the county board chairman is the Liquor Commission chairperson of the county. So we'll have to discuss that at Liquor Commission and then bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I think that's always easier to do when you have that position as vacant versus replacing somebody in the middle of a position.
Yep. So thank you, Mary. Let's go on to future meeting dates.
Public Works,
Monday, June the 7th at 4:00 p.m.
4 o'clock?
Yes, ma'am.
So will that work for Public Works? Monday, June 7th. What time, Mike?
4:00 p.m.
Yes, yep, that's what we have already, yes.
Okay.
Police,
I guess that's to be determined.
okay. Finance? TBD. Community Development,
To be determined.
and that would be the same with the 4th of July.
Same with the 4th of July. Yes.
Liquor Commission, TBD.
Yep.
Air and Water will be before the meeting on 6/14 if needed. Admin is tomorrow, which is the.
Tomorrow. Yep. May 11th at 4 p.m. 1600 hours.
Yes. WIPC.
Oh, I'll let you know. I've not heard anything from Peck Prairie Path.
Okay.
Is that it? All right, thank you.
One quick question, Jeremy, didn't we set finance for the 10th of June?
We do, but we have a new member and I just wanted to make sure it was okay.
Oh, okay, thanks.
All right, so we've got new business. Any new business? One item. Right. One item I have is we talked a little bit about 4th of July fireworks, but I'd also like to bring up the parade. At our last board meeting, we decided to not have a parade. It was based upon the information of where we were with the COVID and the restrictions, and also with the what Dr. Martell had explained to me that I forwarded to the board. Since that meeting, I was asked to write an article for the newsletter. So I thought it was appropriate to write the newsletter like I did a year before about the fireworks and what we were going to do, and then also the parade, and that we weren't going to have a parade. But now with the fast tracking of going from 0 to 60 in terms of being in phase 4 forever and ever to the bridge phase and then phase 5, theoretically by June 11th, we would be in a position where we could have a parade. And I don't know how the board feels. I know that there was on Facebook a new parade route, because somebody asked if there was a parade, and it was after we had said no parade. Somebody posted, yes, there's a new parade route. It's starting at Birch's Meridian Nursery and going to downtown. And so that could cause a lot of problems, because at the time, we were not allowed to have gatherings of more than 15 people per 1,000 square feet. And now, if we're allowed to have gatherings, we really could have a village parade. We've done it before, and Stan, I'd want you to comment on this, but I think it was 3 years ago when Ron Huggins had stepped down and we were not sure about having a parade. And we ended up putting a parade together in 30 days or less, because there isn't a lot to plan. We already have the direction of the parade. We already have the signs for where people line up. And it's pretty much the police department. I know Shirley and I volunteered to do some traffic control. You know, Stan and Deb, I know you guys volunteered to do some of that, and we had other volunteers. So I wanted to put it out there that it's not too late to do a parade if the board feels they want to have the parade.
Would you do it on the 4th?
And I would suggest we do it on the 4th, because you can have the fireworks on the 3rd, and you can have the parade on the 4th, and it just, because we don't have a family festival, it really doesn't matter. We just have the parade on the 4th. Correct. So again, I don't know. It's the board that will make the decision, but I just thought I'd bring it up under new business to see what the tenor of the trustees is, if you have a thought one way or the other.
Well, I know the Fourth of July committee
Depends
was
on if we
really
have.
wanting to push that moving forward. This is something that we can do again, because the only reason we didn't wasn't because we didn't want to, because of COVID. If they want to pick up the ball and start running with it again.
Yeah.
The names escape me of who it was.
Stephanie King?
Yes.
Stephanie King, okay, yeah. She was on before, but. And I think this would be subject to getting into phase 5. I think, you know, it's one of those that if we get to phase 5 before July 4th, then we could have the parade. If we're not into phase 5, I think we wouldn't have the parade. I think that's going to be the trigger point.
Wasn't there the issue in the past, though, of volunteers, or was that only for the festival?
That was more for the festival, because like I said, we only had maybe 12 people that needed to be on designated places during the parade route. We had 2 people. Shirley and I were up with Officer Ostergaard, yeah, up at Faulkner and McNair. And then I think Vivian was someplace, Stan was someplace, Don, you might have been someplace.
I was with you. I was with you, Frank.
You were with me. Yes, you were.
McNair.
Yes. But I think we were able to fill it with those types of volunteers. We didn't have to have a whole lot. We had like certain turns, like at McNair and
Right.
Benton.
Yep, they could.
Benton,
Yeah.
we had to have somebody, and then at Benton and wherever it turns again on Winnebago or Soper Street, Winnebago, and then again on Elida Street. So I think we did it rather quickly. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities for us to get it together and have it in place.
Is Stan still on or no?
I asked Stan to still be on. Stan, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Just because I think it would be instructive to hear from Stan, because I was present at some meetings where there was discussion about the amount of help that's needed and the amount of help that comes forward. And I just want to make sure that help that we're talking about was help that was needed for the festival, which isn't happening. Because it
Right.
wouldn't be fair to put it all on a couple of different, a couple of people.
I've already informed Sergeant Half that to let Stephanie know that if there was a parade that I would be, and my wife Deb would be volunteering to help with that. And if you keep it the same lineup area going on McNair, then there's not that much of a need for people other than those intersections, which Frank had already described. And so that could relatively be done with, 10, 12 people. And it could be done. That's not an issue. It's just getting everybody knowing that there is going to be a parade, and whoever's going to be in the parade, which way we line up.
Yeah. The only thing I
Okay.
have a problem with is knowing what the cutoff date is, because we're going to have to advertise it and everything else. And what happened before was we got there, and for some unknown reason, we were shut down on that. I'm all for the parade. I just want to know, shall we make a decision in June as to go for it? Do we want to go for it, the middle of May, and put a great big if on the bottom? If this happens, this will happen. But I think what's going to happen is I'm all for a parade. And it doesn't take that many people to do the parade. I just want to do what's actually right and what direction we're going to get from our health department.
And just to chime in on that, Don, Dr. Martell did email me past Friday and said now with the governor having stated that by June 11th we should be in phase 5, she said that would then allow you to have your parade without any restrictions. And she said, but if we do get to phase 5. So that's really going to be the qualifying factor. So in my mind, Don.
June 11th? Yeah, June 11th?
June 11th.
Okay, let's put that down as our cutoff date.
I would. Right. So as Lori just pointed out, we have a board meeting on June 14th, so we can then restate it at that board meeting. But I think what I would like to have happen tonight is to get a consensus from the trustees that if we are in phase 5 before July 4th, that we go ahead with a parade so that we can get to talking to volunteers to say, if we're in phase 5 before July 4th, we will have a parade.
Right.
I just want
to
get that consensus.
If you want a motion, I will make the motion that I'm all for a parade.
And
what's your motion, please?
My motion would be that the Village of Winnebago hold its 4th of July parade on the 4th of July if the phase 5 criteria has been met.
Thanks.
Good enough?
All right. Do we have a second to that motion?
Jeremy Graham will second that motion.
All right, we have a second from Jeremy Graham. Any discussion regarding the pending motion?
This is Mike McKinnon. I would just say that, for me to vote positive would be, we'd have to have the affirmation that we've got the minimum number of volunteers to participate.
That's a good point. One of the things we can do is we can lay over this vote to June, to the June board meeting. And in the meantime, number one, we will see if we are in phase 5 on June 11th. Number 2, we can see if we have volunteers enough so that can come back to the board to say, yes, we do have the minimum number of volunteers for that.
Good.
But then what I would suggest is if that's what you want to do, we would have a motion to lay this motion over to the next meeting, but just have a consensus that the idea is we would want to move forward with trying to get volunteers.
Okay, we would need a consensus of that. That would be fine, and lay it over till the June meeting for a total decision. I'll go with that.
All right, so you're making the motion to lay it over to the next meeting. Do we have a second to lay this over to the next meeting?
Jeremy Graham will second that motion.
Okay, so now that takes precedence over the other pending motion. So any discussion on the motion to lay it over to the next month?
Are we gonna reach out to the lady of the 4th of July?
Right,
Do we want to tell them before the June meeting?
right. So Jeff, do we have Nick Half still with us here at the meeting?
I'm still here, yes.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard Trustee Graham, but he was asking that we notify Stephanie King and the rest of the 4th of July committee to see about volunteers. And just so you know, I'm going to volunteer Shirley, and I'm going to volunteer myself. And we would be glad to do the same thing we've done in the past, and that is to be up at the corner of McNair and Jackson to direct the people to start the lineup on McNair Road.
Okay.
Just so you know, I got a number from consultant Malagrande. He said take at least 7 people, 7 volunteers.
So we've got 2 down, and I know we've got 2 more in Stan and Deb, so we're on our way. So, so the idea is that we would have the 4th of July start working on that. But there is a pending motion to lay it over to the next meeting. Julie, I don't know if you were going to say something before.
I just didn't know what was the better motion for communication's sake. Do we just make the motion that we're going to have it on those 2 conditions as we originally started? Or do we say we're going to wait to vote? I mean, it's kind of a different message going out to the community. That was my only thought. I mean, it sounds like the consensus we want it, provided we can have it health-wise and we can get the volunteers. And it sounds like if 7 is really all we need, obviously the more the better, probably for collecting money and so forth. But I don't know, does it make a difference in the messaging?
It does, Julie. I think that's a good point, because we've already sent the message out, or it's going out in the newsletter, that we're not having a parade, because it was based on what I wrote 2 or 3 weeks ago. We would like to get the message out so we don't have these other parades spurring off on their own and starting up on their own. We would like to get the word out. So I think the sooner we can do that, the better. And understand Trustee McKinnon's position that we don't want to say we're going to have it if we can't get the volunteers to do it, because then we're stuck. But I think we need to try and get the message out there. And you have a good point to say that under these 2 conditions, that number 1, we're in phase 5, and number 2, that we have the necessary volunteers, we will then move forward with the parade. And it's similar to what we did with our fireworks. We're moving forward with the fireworks unless we have, at this point, a mandate from the governor stating that we can't do fireworks, or we have a weather event that doesn't do fireworks. So we have a motion to have the parade. We have a pending motion also to lay it over. We'll go with the motion to lay it over. If you don't want to lay it over, but you want to address the pending motion of having the parade, if you vote no on the motion to lay over, then it'll come back to the pending motion. And if that wants to be modified, it can, or it can be voted upon, yes or no. So we're going to take up the motion to lay it over. And again, if we don't have a majority saying yes to laying it over, then it will not be laid over. It'll be addressed tonight. And actually, I'm in error. We cannot have a motion because it's not on the agenda as an item. It's a new business. I don't think we can have a motion because it wasn't on the agenda. So really, we cannot entertain either motion because it's new business. So what I would ask is we can at best do a consensus where if the trustees agree with the approach that Trustee O'Rourke has mentioned, we have a consensus, then we can get the message out there. And I'm just going to have each of the trustees state his or her opinion as to what you think we need to do. Stan, I know you think we have enough volunteers, or we could get enough volunteers, you're going to be talking to the committee along with Nick Half, and then just report back when you find out. But Trustee McKinnon or Trustee Graham, Trustee Pearson, your thoughts on what's been presented by Trustee O'Rourke?
This is Mike Skinnon. I would say providing the health department gives us a go ahead and we've got the volunteers, I would support it.
Okay.
Jeremy Brown's the same.
Okay. So then the idea is,
You need Julie.
right, and Julie, you obviously are in agreement with that approach?
Yeah, and I will also tell you that I actually worked a volunteer event with Denise this weekend, and she was all about the parade. She goes, we can get the volunteers, we just have to ask people. So I don't, is Denise on our 4th of July committee or just?
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, so she was kind of egging me on the parade, and I said, hey, health-wise, I don't think it's going to happen. So, but now it's a whole different story. So I think we'll be okay.
I think if the information is put out there and to Stephanie King, that information would spread like wildfire. With her connections with the community page and the Facebook pages from the village, if you put it out there saying that the parade is going to happen, you'll have a lot of response, I'm sure.
Okay.
Denise also suggested that we charge people an entry fee. I don't know if that's worth discussing tonight or not, and I don't know if any parade does that. I have just no experience whatsoever in it, but I'll just throw that out there. She thought that could make a lot of sense to help pay for fireworks and so forth.
We already,
go ahead, Stan.
We tried doing an entrance fee before and it was shot down, but we did do can donation.
Yep.
And that turned out somewhat okay, but then where the volunteers, as far as walkers in the parade, and I think Mike, you might have done it, and a couple other people, Paul was part of that, where you walk in the parade with the cans for donations from the people, the spectators, in order to be able to fund the 4th of July. That's what we were doing. We tried the entrance fee. A lot of people said, I'm not going to say, but they didn't want to do anything like that. If they said if there was going to be an entrance fee, they're not going to participate. It's always been free. And so we did a can and it did pretty good.
And this is Sergeant Half. I think we're also a little late in the game if we're going to be trying to set up a parade at the moment and try to do collection of fees and all that. I think that we should just, if we're going to do it, push forward with that rather than try to factor in this unknown of a fee or anything.
I mean, there still hasn't been a decision, yes or no. So to set up these things in that short time frame, because if it's not discussion or the decision's not going to be made till the 14th, then you're really limiting your time frame.
Right, and that's been the beauty of the parade and being able to do it so quickly, is that we don't have an entrance fee or an application to be in the parade. And that is, I've talked to a lot of different people, whether it's people in government positions that might be running for election or have just been elected that want to get their name out there, or just the everyday person that's got a business. They like the fact that they can come to Winnebago, not have to pay an entrance fee, not have to even fill out an application. It's very easy. You just drive up and you're in the parade. We did have a couple years ago the having each person that was in the parade fill out something just to keep track of it. It was a little bit cumbersome. Most of the people, I'd say 95% of the people were fine with it. A couple of them refused to do it. So if we want to go through that route, we can do that. But I think anything more than that, I think it'll turn people away rather than having them come. So again, that's something where our 4th of July committee can talk more about it in September, October. And if that's a recommendation, then they can come to the board with that recommendation. We can talk more about it. So, all right, so we've got a consensus to move forward. And I guess Nick and Jeff and Stan, do you want me to write, have Stephanie put out there? Do you want Stephanie just to put it out there that we're doing this with, as long as we have phase 5 approval and we're in phase 5?
I think it ought to come from you, Frank.
Yep, that's what we were gonna say. We got
Village.
the consensus of the three of us in here that the message should come from you, Frank.
I'll go ahead and prepare a statement then, and that can then be published on our website and then also on the community website.
Okay.
All right. The next item I have for new business is with regard to our current building inspector or building official, and that is Dick Harris. Dick had come to talk to me towards the end of April and let me know that he was looking at retiring from his position as the building inspector, building official, and wanted to make it effective no later than June 30th of 2021. We talked about his possible replacement, and his initial suggestion was that we have Casper Mannheim, who is our current code enforcement officer, take over for the building inspector and the building code official. I agreed with that. I thought that was a logical replacement. Casper has this experience in other communities. I believe in Pecatonica. I know he serves 3 or 4 or 5 other communities. So he's well versed in building codes and other things like that. I did talk to Casper on Friday at length. He knew that this was going to be coming at some point and had in his mind that he would arrest him. So he will accept that position. I would like to have him appointed in that position. And when talking to Dick, he suggested that if we do appoint Casper or somebody else, that we appoint them sooner rather than later so that Dick could work with that person and show that person how he's doing the permit so that person understands the system. I did talk to Casper a second time on Friday. He called back and he said that he had given some information to our, I don't know if it was Kelly or the assistants up front, and he has a certain method with communities as to how he does it. I explained to him what I knew of our method, and what he said is he would go with either way. I thought it would be beneficial for us to take a look at what he's doing in other communities. He said it seems like it's a little more streamlined, and I said we're always up for improving our system. So what I would suggest is that there be a meeting. I would meet with Dick and Casper and Kelly and anybody else, Mike McKinnon, I know you were involved with a lot of this through community development. Anybody else that wants to sit down, we can sit down, but I would like to look at both ways of doing it and see if there's improvements. But initially, I would like to have Casper appointed. Now, I talked to him about what we currently do, and he had a different way of getting paid through his other communities that he was going to bring up. So I told him we paid him per permit. He got a portion, and then we also would pay a stipend for the building official duties. And he wasn't aware that there was a separate stipend. So I think he's willing to move forward. And what I would ask is that we move forward and discuss with him, and I'm just putting this out there, that maybe we offer him what we're currently paying Dick Medeiros in his position and offer that to Casper. And then if Casper has his own suggested ways, we can then bring that back to the board to see if they would rather go that route rather than the current method. But I would say that we would make the offer that what we're currently doing. And Dick, I know you're on the phone, and I would appreciate your input. I know you mentioned about permits and that there are quite a few that you still have open that you wrote out and that you will likely finish up before June 30th. And the idea is that you would get paid those amounts. And then if there are any new permits that are issued, I think from this time forward, that either you would split it with Casper or some such arrangement. If you could kind of explain your thoughts on that, just so we have an understanding. Dick, I don't know if you're trying to talk, but if you are, we cannot hear you.
No, I wasn't trying. There was some
I just heard
background
some noise. I
noises.
didn't know if that was you or somebody else, so sorry about that. But my
No, there was some background. Casper and I spoke today for a little bit down at the office this morning. We're going to try to get together and go over some things, and we can meet with you and whoever else wants to be involved. That should be a problem. And I also stated that I'd be willing to help with the transition as much as I can, as much as I have time for. And hopefully I can get a lot of these leftover permits from the roofing situation from last year and the two storms that occurred in April and November by the end of June. Otherwise, we'll see what transpires from there. The main thing is Mother Nature holding up so you can get out and do the physical inspection. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. So I know, Dick, you put down that you would like to finish writing permits by May 30th. So that would be the transition of when we would want Casper to then start on the day after that to actually be the one that's writing the permits. And my understanding is that as best as you can with Casper between now and then, you would, again, be talking to him about issuing the permits and how to issue them and how you normally do it. Is it your understanding that any permits that you issue up to May 30th, you would be paid for the actual work that you've done for those permits? However, if they are like a permit where there would be 3 inspections and you do 1, you'd be paid for the 1, but the other 2, if Casper does them, he'd be paid for those remaining 2, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So I would ask that the board approve the appointment of Casper Mannheim as our building inspector / building code official under the same terms that we have Dick Medeiros employed as, and that really the position would start May 30th or May 31st, I guess, since Dick would want to stop the permitting at May 30th.
And you're doing this, Frank, as an advice and consent, because again, this can be something on the agenda, but that you appoint, but it's just the advice and consent.
Correct.
Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
So if there's any, first of all, if there's any questions or comments, I would ask that they be made now. And then the second thing is if there's any objection to that.
This is Mike McKinnon. I would be in support of working with Casper on this, but obviously there's some I's to dot and T's to cross as far as making sure the compensation is all straightened out, and also the coordination effect between what Mr. Medeiros has started and what Casper would finish has got to be ironed out.
Yep. And I will try and talk with Casper in more detail. Like I said, I'll try and meet with Dick and Casper here at the village office and then talk to Casper about his compensation and what the best way to go about it will be.
And I take it that Casper has indicated that based on his obligations with other communities, he has time to do this job for the village?
He did talk to me about that. He said that he would notify his other communities too, that he would be taking on this role. And, you know, he has to make it a little more streamlined. That's why I think he wanted to present the way he does his permits, because he thought it was a little more streamlined. He does it, I think, in Pecatonica a certain way, and he felt that it was a good system there. So that's why I think we need to take the time to look at that to see if what he's doing will be better for the village. And if he's already used to it, it'll make his job easier. But we just have to see if it'll work for the village itself. So, so that's why I want to meet with Dick and with Casper and with Kelly. And if we're going to have Sue or Chris or anybody like that working on them, to meet with them, just to get all the input so that we can make sure we've got the best system going forward, and that then Casper can determine whether he feels that the current compensation is appropriate, or do we need to try it a different way? Because I think he gets paid a little differently in Pecatonica. The way he mentioned it was he charges a certain amount and the balance goes to the village. And so I need to further discuss that with him to see, what he means by that.
Is he going to be a contract employee or an employee as Dick is?
My thought would be he would take the position of Dick Medeiros. So he would be compensated in the same way.
Can one person be both an employee and a contract person?
That's what I wanted to know too.
I didn't think you could be both for the same employer.
It's one or the other. It's one or the other.
So do you know, Kelly, if he's a contract employee with Pecatonica?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's what he's anticipating.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe his relationship with all the municipalities is as a contract.
Right.
That's my understanding as well.
And that's Kelly's understanding too, talking to him, that is what he is with Pecatonica when he's doing their building inspections as well. So
That will also save because we won't have to pay unemployment and so on.
right. So what I would state is that he be paid as a contractor the same rate that Dick Medeiros is being paid, and that's 170. I believe it's $175 per month for the stipend. 150 per month for the stipend, and the same rate for the permits that are issued. Because I believe we have in our ordinance now the exact amount that the building inspector receives per permit. So if everyone's okay with that, then we'll move forward in that direction, and I'll follow up with Casper just to make sure that he agrees with that method of compensation. But I'd like to have that, I'd like to move forward with that method of payment.
That's fine.
And then we'll bring it back up at the June board meeting for confirmation. Is everybody okay with that? All right. All right, so anything else, Dick?
No, there should be a letter, copy of the letter of my resignation in everyone's packet. I believe Kelly put them in everybody's packet.
Yep, I was just going to address that. And, I do want to say that, we had Lori up here who served 2 years, and we have you who served 35 years. I think you've been doing this almost as long as Sally Joe has been doing the village clerk.
Mighty close.
86.
86. So you're 1 year younger in serving than Sally Joe. So I do have to say, Dick, thank you for your service. I know when you started, I believe you had been at the county for quite a while doing the same type of work there, and you were able to allow the village to have somebody that was very knowledgeable about these things actually living in the village and able to take over a position that we needed. So I appreciate your service. I appreciate everything that you've done, and just wanted to point out that you've given us 35 years, and as you say, it's time to hang it up, and hopefully you enjoy your full retirement now.
Go to greener pastures.
Right.
Thank you.
So, all right. Well, thanks again, Dick.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I've got another item, and the village has property taxes that we need to pay on the Mantle Development property. Sally had brought it to my attention today, and I believe I'd forwarded it to the trustees. You may or may not have had time today because it was late in the afternoon. But the parcels that we acquired, we do have to pay the taxes because these are taxes that are due for the year 2020, and they're payable this year. And since we took over the property dismantle development, we also took over the obligation to pay those taxes. They are due in June prior to our board meeting. And Sally was asking that she be allowed to pay those. I believe the total amount's less than $2,000 in property taxes. Is that what I saw?
Yeah, 3,800.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, $3,800, just over
for-
3,800 for,
That's the whole thing.
right. So the first installment is 1,900. Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
So we have the first installment that needs to be paid. And so I'm just asking for a consensus again from the board. Obviously, I'd be able to do it on my own, but since you're here, I'd like to get the consensus to go ahead and have that paid now. Again, we can have the authority and approval at the June board meeting, along with the authority and approval to pay the balance due prior to the September date.
Yes.
All right.
You have my
So
support.
I'm seeing the two trustees here, Graham and Pearson, nodding yes. Julie has said yes. Mike, I believe you're in agreement.
Yes.
Yes.
And Don, you're in agreement
Yes.
too. So, all right,
And
Sally,
then-
go ahead and go ahead, Mary.
And then, of course, Sally Bennett will apply for the exemption going forward. It's just that, as you mentioned, Frank, it's because it's for 2020 that we couldn't have the exemption.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mary. Yep, Sally had mentioned that she's going to do that. Kelly had mentioned before the meeting, were we going to seek that out? And I told her yes, that Sally was going to be doing that. So Kelly and Sally will work on getting the exemption, and then that will allow us to have it tax-free from this point forward. All right. I do have another item, a quick item for new business, and that is we did get information from the IML, and I believe everyone did, regarding the additional funds that are coming through the, lost my notes here. Okay, so we have the American Rescue Plan, otherwise known as ARP. As soon as the act is passed, the Village of Winnebago is still on board to receive $369,532. When it's passed, because of the size of community we are, the state of Illinois will actually receive our funds as well as all the other communities, so that'll then be dispersed according to the state of Illinois. Do all of you trustees receive the emails from Brad Cole and IML?
Don does.
All right. Yep. So Kelly did, and I just want to make sure that Drew will be getting it. So Kelly said that Drew will be getting that as well. So I just wanted to give you the update. That should be coming out soon. Nothing seems to have changed, except they do have, which is very nice, an 8-page document that does specify what you can use the funds for. So it does give a lot more detail in that 8-page document. So I was able to print it out. It's one of the links that Brad has there. So I would ask that finance might want to take a look at that to see what we can use. But again, one of the main things we can use it for is water projects. So if we don't have any other uses, we can use it for water projects. The other thing is we can use it for businesses that have been hurt. So if we do know of businesses that have been hurt by COVID, we can use it for that. So just keep those things in mind when we discuss the use of those funds.
What's the date of that notification? Make sure
The email was sent out today on May 10th at 4:01 p.m. by Brad Cole. And then I do have one other item for new business, and that is because we're transitioning possibly very quickly from phase 4 to bridge phase to phase 5, we need to be aware that the village is currently closed mostly to people. And at some point, we need to look at reopening the village office for regular business. I mean, right now, we let people come in by appointment and other things like that, but we need to discuss that. And the other thing we need to discuss is when we're going to have the trustees come back to the village table, if that's going to happen, and if we can have people still come virtually. Just because we're in phase 5 does not mean that we don't have the threat of COVID or a variant. So we still have to be aware of that. We have to be mindful of that and plan for that. I don't think we're going to have time tomorrow at our admin team / supervisor meeting to discuss this, but that is something that I think that group should discuss, because that's the same group that discussed closing this just over a year ago in March. So I think that that's a task that we need to talk about, at least scheduling when we're at our meeting tomorrow. But I wanted to put it out there because it's something we do need to discuss. I would like to try and discuss it before the June meeting. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, disaster proclamation will only go through towards the end of May. And I don't know if the governor is going to extend it any further past that. So we'll see what the governor decides to do, and then we'll kind of act according to that. I still intend to have our meetings with GoToMeeting forever, because it's a way to record it. It's a way for people to log in who cannot physically come here. So I think we'll still do that, but we'll need to start transitioning back to having some people in person. And that's all I have for
Hey,
new
Frank.
business. Yeah, Julie.
Question on that whole coming back. We talked about technology a meeting or two ago. Trustees, did we ever get any refresh on that conversation?
Yes, Kelly was able to look at some more laptops, and I asked her to bring that information to the June board meeting so that we would have our newly appointed trustee and our newly elected trustees in position. So I would ask that Kelly maybe send that out to us now, so we have plenty of time to take a look at that information, if she can maybe update it to see what the current prices are for the laptops. But that's a good point, Julie. I'm glad you brought that up so that we can get that out there and maybe have a decision at the June board meeting. Any other thoughts?
I just
Sally?
have a quick question. Does anyone know when we'll get results from the 2020 census?
I don't know.
We do have some of the tax payments that we receive are based on our population. So I've been watching to see if that changes, and I just haven't really heard anything, and I didn't know if the mayors have been talking about it or anything.
They're doing the redistricting, so they've got to have the numbers.
Yeah, and I thought,
Huh?
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, as Sally Jo was saying, they're doing the redistricting based upon the census. So I think the census numbers are in. And
Okay.
I thought that I had read something in Brad Cole's email or link that talked about our amounts were based upon a certain census figure.
Okay.
And
Oh,
I read the same thing, and I think they said that we gained 304 residents in Winnebago. Is that the one you were
Okay.
talking about, Frank? Because that's one that came from Cole. That's what I read. In fact, I read it this afternoon.
Could be, yep, okay. So thanks for pointing that out, Don.
Yeah, okay.
3,340 then?
We'll have to verify that, we'll have to look that up, but that could be, it could be we have grown. So we'll have to check into that, Sally, to see. I don't know if the American Rescue Plan will change the figures based upon the new census, or if they already had access to those figures. That's what I was trying to look for and I couldn't find that.
It's in Cole's thing.
So if we want to take a look at that message from Brad Cole that came out earlier today, we may have that information in there.
Frank, one more question, I guess, under new business. Did things get resolved with Tony's, or where are we with that?
I have not talked to Michelle. I've had people contact me. I was actually working on another issue that didn't materialize tonight. But with Michelle, I've understood that she will be working with Dick to get the proper permit. I've had Aaron Booker and some other people that she's contact me, and I've talked with them, and they've also talked with her, and they've relayed information to me. I plan to call Michelle tomorrow. I will be at the village office tomorrow. I do have the 4 o'clock admin team meeting, and I plan to be here about 2:30. And she's one of 2 things I have on my agenda, so I plan to call her to talk to her directly, just to see where she's at. I know Kelly, I'd asked Dick to provide Kelly with the various building code or items that she needed to follow that she hadn't been following, so that we could actually relay that to Michelle. And I think Kelly was putting that together so we could actually get that to Michelle so she would know which part she has to comply with. She had cited some things in her letter to us, but I wanted to make sure she had the full parts of the code so she would know what she needed to do. So I plan to reach out to her tomorrow to follow up on all of that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other new business? All right, if there's no new business, if we have a motion to adjourn.
Mike McKinnon will make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Gary Graham will second.
All right, so roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda, Mr.
No,
Malagranda.
he's not on the board anymore. He's not on the board anymore.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Pearson is.
Mr. Pearson, sorry.
All right. So
By the way, he did say yes.
that's approved. So thank you everybody for attending tonight, and have a good evening.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Too much